Day number 6 of my Natasha Denona little series that I'm running currently here on my channel. Now day number 6 is the retro palette. I'm very excited because this is one of my I feel like I've said this every day, but I really do love the retro palette so much. Now if you are new to this little series here or new to my channel, this is just basically like a 8-day series where I am creating a different eye look with a different Natasha Denona palette that I own in my collection every day. It was going to be 7, but the pastel palette got released in time and it should be here tomorrow, so I think we will be able to include the new pastel palette in this little series, which is exciting. Now today I thought I would also do just a little bit of tips and tricks of working with Natasha Denona eyeshadows. You know, they're pretty easy to work with, to be honest with you, but I do know that the retro palette in particular has a lot of the cream to powder formula, and I know that that can be a controversial formula from her, so I thought I would give you guys some tips and tricks on how I work with that formula and her other shadows as well. So hopefully this all sounds interesting to you, and if it does, then you know the deal. Let's go ahead and do the YouTubey things. Go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and let's zoom in and get into it. We have retro, which if you saw my 2021 eyeshadow palette ranking, this one was number 2 for 2021 for me. I was never gonna pick this palette up because I was like, I don't know about the tones, etc. And I picked it up because I felt the same way about the Glam palette from her, and whenever I got Glam, I just fell so head over heels in love, and it's such a staple in my collection. And I just had this feeling that retro was gonna be the same, and I was correct. So I am definitely glad I picked up retro because I don't want to live without her, truly. I really don't. I'm gonna use my Nars Smudge Proof Eye Primer today. Now, if you didn't catch my first eyeshadow tips and tricks video as well, I'll link that, or try and remember to link that in the description box down below for you guys. But that was essentially my like working with not Natasha Denona, Pat McGrath Labs eyeshadows specifically. Honestly though, like every single tip in that video, even though I was aiming it mainly at Pat McGrath Labs, is honestly translatable to every single eyeshadow brand there is out there. It's just generally eyeshadow tips and tricks. However, I didn't really talk about the cream to powder formula in there, so I will cover off on that with Natasha today. And you know, the formula is different to Pat for sure with Natasha, but the general tips and tricks from that video that I'm not going to go over again today still stand for this video. I did put that Nars primer on. I am just going to set it with a bit of loose powder as well. Just find with the Natasha formula, setting the primer does work a little bit better. A couple of things with Natasha Denona's formula. So she has her normal like powder eyeshadows, which are just like, you know, kind of a generic matte eyeshadow formula. In saying that, I do personally think that Natasha Denona's matte formula is the best on the market that I have personally tried. Again, keep in mind I haven't tried every single brand out there. But for me, especially in these like midi palettes, the matte formula, and like Bieber even, like the matte formula is second to none for me. You really can't screw up using her matte formula. Of course, I still strongly recommend starting slow and building the pigment like I recommended with the Pat McGrath Labs shadows, where you are gonna start, you know, don't just pick up a heap of pigment in the palette and then whack it on your eye and expect it to blend out easily. Like I said, that's going to be a recipe for disaster, really, kind of no matter what brand you use. However, if you are going to do it with any brand, the most forgiving I have found is Natasha Denona. You can kind of be a bit more in a rush with her matte formula, and it's going to kind of work out okay, but it's going to take you a little bit longer. It just is. It's just, you know, packing a heap of color on at one time is not the way to go. The first shadow that I'm going to go into is this one right here, which is called Nude Mauve. And this is just a normal matte formula for her, so it's not her cream to powder. I will talk about those when we get to them. I'm sticking to the same brush, which is the Rephr number 16. And what kind of eye look am I going for today? Let me think about this. Yeah, so I'm gonna start like I always do with kind of packing this onto the outer corner, doing a squiggly like I always do, and you can see how pigmented that is. So if you get to the point where you're putting eyeshadow on and you're like, oh, I've picked up too much, this is where having a paper towel like this, just where you're doing your makeup, is handy, because you can wipe that excess shadow off and you know, not get too carried away. save the look, you know what I mean? And I'm just going to squiggle and kind of like really just blow this kind of shadow out and up. And then once I'm happy with like the blend on the outer corner, this was the blend motion, that's when I'll bring whatever pigment is left into the inner corner. Now again, with these tips guys, make sure that you look at your eye shape as well and do what's best for your eye shape. I always find with my hooded eyes, they're also downturned, so I find kind of directing more pigment here and upward really creates more of a lifted almond shaped eye for me and makes my eyes look a little bit less hooded. Whereas, and then if I put too much shadow on this inner corner, I can look quite heavy. But you might have a different effect. You might have, you know, maybe slightly wider eyes or something like that, and you want to put more pigment in here because it's going to make them seem closer together or whatever it is. So just make sure that you're tailoring the look to suit your eye shape. It's not going to be like a one size fits all. Another tip that I didn't talk about in the original eyeshadow tips and tricks video is actually getting these little Q-tip things. And if you find that you've gone a little bit too far with the shadow, or even if you've like brought it too far in on this inner corner, or you haven't blended it out, or you've brought it up too much, basically just anywhere that you want to tidy the eyeshadow up, you can use these little Q-tips to kind of just tidy the eyeshadow up, create that little bit more of a blend, etc. And they will do the job wonderfully. And I actually learned that from Lisa Eldridge, the queen of makeup herself. I'm gonna pick up my What's Up Beauty R105 brush. So this is also a natural hair brush like the Rephr ones. And we're gonna go into just another matte shade, which is this one right here called Groove. And I have this look that I saw Emily from Emily's Makeup Bag. I'll link her channel down below. I saw her do this on her channel a couple of weeks ago, and ever since I saw her do it, I have wanted to recreate it myself. And so that is what we're doing. And it's funny because in the video I watched it and I don't even think she really liked the look, but it was like, I was just so in love with it. But anyway, I will link her down below. Go and check her out if you don't know, if you haven't followed her before. Anyway, what I'm doing is taking this and just concentrating this lower down into the crease. And exact same step as the top one, making sure we're using a light pressure, remember, and just really creating that depth within the crease. Let's talk about Natasha's cream to powder formula. So for example, Andy, which is this purple shade right here, this is a cream to powder shade. Rebellion, this one right here. Not Patty, Go-Go, which is this one right here. All three of these shades are cream to powder formulas, which means that they're kind of like a cream that goes to powder. So her cream to powder formula is controversial to say the least. Some people, you either love it or you hate it from what I've seen. I didn't realize people didn't like it. I love it so much for multiple different reasons. The biggest reason for me that I love her cream to powder is they are the best, hands down, like one and done shadows, because they don't really have any fallout, right? Because they're more of that cream texture in here. And then when you put them on the eyelids, because they turn into that powder texture, you can really pack them all over the lid. And then once they've kind of transitioned to that powder, you get like your blending brush, for example, and like can blend it out. And it will, because it's transitioned to that powder formula. And it just is so effortless and easy. And then also because it is like that more cream formula, it has so much more pigment and opaqueness to it that it really holds the color. You know, sometimes, especially if you have drier lids or something, or just depending on the day, or just even the formula, sometimes if you put just a plain matte shadow all over the lid, it can be quite hard to build up that opaqueness for it because it's designed to more blend out and diffuse. Whereas these cream to powder formulas are so good for packing on that pigment and color, but still having that kind of powder formula as well, where you can blend it out and manipulate it really beautifully. So I love them. The best way that you're going to to work with these though is, I mean, look, you can honestly pick them up with the blending brush and blend them out. They'll do the job, they really will. But if you've already put some powder shadows down, the best way to do it is to get a little bit more of a denser brush or a smaller brush and pack and then blend. So for example, the Rephr number 13, see how this is just a little bit smaller and more densely packed? What this will allow you to do is kind of pick up the color, and then you're going to want to like tap it on and then lightly blend it out. So it's just a different technique to manipulate the shadow. If you kind of go in expecting it to perform like a normal matte shadow, then yeah, you are 100% going to be disappointed in it, because it's not a matte shadow formula. It is a cream to powder formula, which means it requires a slightly different technique to use. Does that make it a bad shadow or anything like that, or a bad, you know, like is Natasha Denona bad for that? Absolutely not, because it is not a matte formula and she's not pretending it to be a matte formula. She is saying to you it is a cream to powder formula, which means it requires a different technique. You can't, you know, you can't expect a duck to bark like a dog, you know what I mean? Like they're two different things. I don't know if that analogy is even close to trying to make my point, but that's what came out. And you know, at the end of the day, you might use the formula differently and you know, use the technique or whatever, and you still don't like it, and that's completely okay. Not everyone is going to like the same thing, but I'm just saying, if you're going in expecting those cream to powders to behave like a matte, then you are going to be very, very disappointed, because it's not the same formula. My biggest tip for working with these is, especially if you're going to blend them through the crease, a denser brush. You don't want to go in with a super fluffy brush. You can. If it is the first shade that you are laying down, you absolutely can go in with a more fluffy brush, but it's going to take you a little bit longer to build that product up just because of the formula. But if you go in with something a little bit more dense, like, because I've already laid these down, for example, if I go in with something a little bit more dense and pick the product up, tap it, and then slightly blend, you're gonna be fine. The other way that you can do it is, like, say for example, you're putting one of the colors all over your lid, like a one and done, just pick it up with your finger and pop it like mostly over the lid, and then get your like fluffy blending brush and blend out the edges. Bob's your uncle. And then the other way that you can do it is grabbing more of like a flat shader brush, picking it up, packing it on, and then slightly blending where required, which is what we're gonna do right now. So we're gonna pick up the color Rebellion right here. This is a Dior flat brush that I have had since I was 15 years old. You can no longer get this, but I still love it and still use it, obviously. Just grab any shader brush that you might have. So we're just going to, and kind of like a metallic, you guys, how I'm always like pat, don't just like swipe. It's the same kind of deal. If you're getting fallout, it's because you've picked up too much color on your brush, like all I just did. So you're just gonna want to pat and pack. And I'm just pretty much putting this all over my lid. And you want to do a way better job of keeping this tidy than I have done, because I did not mean to get that underneath here. And then I've kind of lost that like original berry matte shade, so I'm gonna go back into Groove with that second brush that we used, the What's Up Beauty one, and I will just blend. And I want you to see that it's going to blend out that cream to powder formula. See that? Super, super easy, because it's now turned into that powder formula, yeah? So now I'm going to go into this color, which is Opart, and this is also a cream to powder formula, and I'm going in with my Rephr 13, and I will just lightly pack this into the outer corner just to add a little bit of depth. But see how I'm like tapping? That's what you want to do. See? I'm not sure if I'm going to use a metallic yet, so I'm going to leave this here. We're going to go into like the time lapse of me doing my base, like I've been doing in my other videos, and then we'll come back and we will finish the eyes, and I'll figure out if I'm going to use a metallic, etc. So our base makeup is done. Let's go ahead and do the lower lash line and finish this up. Now, I really just think I want to leave this as a matte look, but I know that you guys are going to be like, you were doing eyeshadow tips and tricks, and she has metallics. So all I'm going to say is that her metallics are extremely creamy, blendable, opaque, just goodness. They're incredible, incredible metallics. They really, really are. They are not a like wham bam, thank you ma'am kind of metallic formula. They're definitely more of an everyday, like very wearable for the everyday kind of makeup wearer metallic formula. So they're not going to be like your Pat McGrath special shades or anything like that. In terms of actually getting the best use out of them, really, I would just go back to my original eyeshadow tips and tricks video where I talk about working with metallic shades. It's very similar. I actually prefer to use my Milk Makeup primer for Natasha's metallic shadows, and if you've noticed, even in this series so far, every single day when I've used one of her metallics, I've used this one because I do find this is more like a glitter glue, and her metallics are just a touch, just ever so slightly crumbly, not in the same way that like a Pat McGrath special shade is, more of like a creamy type crumble, slightly, ever so slightly, and because of that, I just find that they grip really well to this primer and really create that full-blown opaque formula, and it really just lasts like all day on my hooded eyes. So I do prefer this one just because it's a little bit more sticky than the Intensifiers for Natasha. Intensifiers is still going to work exceptionally well. And again, I would recommend the Rephr number 2 brush. This is my favorite brush all time for any metallic in any formula ever, period. That's the brush that I recommend. Or use your finger or put some concealer down, put whatever down, put some eye primer down and like pat the metallic on. But her metallics are very easy to work with. Go back to the original eyeshadow tips and tricks video, honestly. There's no different, no different. I'm just gonna pick up a little pencil brush and go into Groove here, which is that powder, like matte berry shade first, and I will lightly run that underneath here. I don't wanna go too smoky. Just literally like that. Nice, and then for the inner corner, I'm actually gonna go into Mod here, and I'm going to use this. I really, really like this Mod shade actually. As an inner corner highlight, I do quite often use this. It's just like a perfect brightening shade. And I might just pop some of this underneath the brow bone here as well. I'm gonna quickly go and put my black eyeliner from Charlotte on the top waterline, and I'm gonna put this ColourPop one in Joyride on the lower line, so I'll do that and be back in 1 second. I also just smudged some of the black eyeliner onto the top lash line as well. Then I just realized I never finished my brows off, so let me quickly do that. This is just my Kosas Air Brow Gel. I always put brow gel in my hair to start with when I do my eyes, just so I can have the shape, and I'll fill in lightly with a pencil. And then whenever I do the rest of my base makeup, my brows always droop because that's just how my brows roll. And so that's when I re-go in with like my brow gel. If you're wondering, I used to do the whole shaping thing with my brows, but I just gave up, and honestly, I just really do brow gel now. Okay, what do we got left? Actually, we just have mascara left. So I'm gonna use a mixture of Pat Dark Star and Lancome Lash Idole. These literally make these literally make my lashes look like falsies, for realsies. And then I'll go do my hair, etc., and we'll come back and see the finished look. Okay, and this is the finished makeup look. What do we think? Do we like the all matte look? I personally really like it. It depends on your vibe and what you're going for, but I do really like it. You know, you could really recreate this all matte look with this palette is what I'm trying to spit out. And if you wanted to make it more soft, you could use like this tone right here, which is Go Go, and like Amara, and that's going to be more of like that. I don't even know what color you would call them, like peachy maroon or something. But anyway, these shades would be a lot softer on the eyes and not so grungy if that's what you're after, but I personally love it. So anyway, this is the finished makeup look. If you're watching till this point, I truly appreciate you. Thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing day wherever you are in the world, and I will see you next time. Bye.